Hi friends, this is CA Srinivasan Anand here. This is chilly winter out here in Delhi, and we have had the Supreme Court giving its decision on the validity of demonetization, which takes us back to the winter of 2016, when in the chilly winter we had to line up before ATMs. Those were very vivid memories because we made many new friends. We helped out some people, and some people in turn helped us out. This way we made many new friends. Bank accounts which we had opened earlier, which were ignored for some time when we shifted residences, suddenly became very useful. We used the password regeneration facilities and reactivated the bank accounts. And whichever branch there was less queue, we used to shift funds to that bank account and line up before that branch and withdraw money. So those vivid memories come jogging back to us. Now, the Supreme Court has rendered its decision on the validity of 2016 demonetization in Vivek Narayan Sharma versus the Union of India yesterday. The 2016 demonetization is certainly not the first demonetization in history of India. We have had two earlier demonetizations before this, in 1946 and in 1978. The 2016 demonetization was the third demonetization. The basic difference between the 2016 demonetization and the earlier ones is this. The earlier demonetizations were through the legislative route or the ordinance route. And the latest demonetization in 2016 was through the notification route by taking recourse to Section 26 subsection 2 of the Reserve Bank of India 1934. In 1946, the demonetization was done by High Denomination Bank Notes Demonetization Ordinance 1946. In 1978, again ordinance was promulgated on 16th January 1978, which was later transformed into the High Denomination Bank Notes Demonetization Act 1978, which received the assent of President on 30th March 1978. And in the latest demonetization, which was controverted before the Supreme Court, whose legality was disputed before Supreme Court in Vivek Narayan Sharma case, it was done by notification number 3407E dated 8 November 2016, and it was issued under Section 26(2) of the Reserve Bank of India Act 1934. And later on, to validate it, ordinance was brought in December 2016, specified Banknote Cessation of Liabilities Ordinance, which was later replaced by specific Banknotes Cessation of Liabilities Act 2017. Now, 1946 and 1978 demonetizations adopted the legislation route and not the notification route, the notification under Section 26(2) route, as was the case of 2016 demonetization. What is more, the ordinances or the legislations in 1946 and 1978 clearly provided that those demonetizations were notwithstanding anything contained in Section 26 of the Reserve Bank of India 1934, Act 1934. So demonetization on 8/11/2016 adopted the Gazette notification route instead of passing a new demonetization ordinance. The demonetization of 2016 notification preamble, it mentioned very clearly that it was an exercise of the powers conferred by subsection 2 of Section 26 of the Reserve Bank of India Act 1934. The preamble of demonetization notification is very instructive to look at. It begins with saying, whereas the Central Board of the Directors of Reserve Bank of India has recommended that banknotes of denominations of existing series of the value of 500 rupees and 1000 rupees shall be ceased to be legal tender. And then the preamble proceeds to mention why the demonetization exercise has been undertaken or what it seeks to remedy. And whereas it has been found that fake currency notes of the specified banknotes have been largely in circulation, and it has been found to be difficult to identify genuine banknotes from fake notes, and the use of fake currency notes is causing adverse effect to the economy of the country. And whereas it has been found that the high denomination banknotes are used for storage of unaccounted wealth, and fake currency is being used for financing subversive activities such as drug trafficking and terrorism, causing damage to the economy and security of the country. And therefore, the central government, after due consideration, has decided to implement the recommendations of the Central Board of Reserve Bank of India. Now, therefore, in exercise of the powers conferred by subsection 2 of section 26 of the Reserve Bank of India Act 1934, the central government hereby declares that the specific banknote shall cease to be legal tender. Now, since section 26(2) has been referred to in the preamble of the Reserve Bank of India of the notification issued by central government on 8/11/2016, it makes sense to have a look at the text of section 26(2) of the RBI Act 1934. The ingredients of section 26(2) of the RBI Act 1934, under which the demonetization notification was issued in 2016, has these ingredients. It starts with, on recommendation of the Central Board, meaning the Central Board of Reserve Bank of India, the central government may, by notification in the Gazette of India, declare that with effect from such date as may be specified in the notification, any series of banknotes of any denomination shall cease to be legal tender, save at such office or agency of the bank, and to such extent as may be specified in notification. So 26(2) clearly lays down these ingredients. First of all, under section 26(2), the demonetization may be done by the central government, and that exercise is to be done on the recommendation of the Central Board of the Reserve Bank of India. It is to be done by a notification issued in the Gazette of India, which declares that with effect from such date as specified in the notification, any series of banknotes of any denomination shall cease to be legal tender. Now, this declaration that any series of banknotes of any denomination shall cease to be legal tender, such and such series of such and such denomination shall cease to be legal tender, will be subject to exceptions which are specified in the notification itself. To prevent hardships to people, the notification itself will provide certain exceptions or exemptions, and the demonetization will be subject to those exceptions which are provided in the notification itself. So the bone of contention in this particular demonetization, which was done through the notification route under 26(2), was that on recommendation of the central bank. What is meant by on recommendation? Is it necessary that the proposal of demonetization should be initiated by the Central Board of Reserve Bank of India itself? Will it not do if the central government initiates the proposal, sends it to the central board goes through it and then recommends? Will it not suffice? This was the bone of contention. And the other bone of contention was the word any series of banknotes. What does the word any mean? Will it mean one or some series of banknotes of a particular denomination? Or the power extends to declaring that all series of a particular denomination, that is complete 500 note all series, complete 1000 note all series, can it be demonetized by central government under this provision? It was contended by the petitioners that one, the provision, the requirement of recommendation of the central board was not satisfied because proposal was initiated by the central government and not by the Central Board of Reserve Bank of India. And secondly, they contended that the power was limited to any series of banknotes, and any means one or some and not all series of banknotes. This was the contention. In other words, they said the notification was issued under 26(2) of the RBI Act 1934. The notification violates section 26(2) in that it is not issued on the recommendation of Central Board of Reserve Bank of India, and all series have been demonetized instead of one or some series, and therefore the notification should be struck down as illegal and the demonetization reversed and set aside. This was their contention, that demonetization is illegal since the power under which the notification has been issued under section 26(2), the requirements of that section have not been satisfied at all. Now this notification which is issued under section 26(2) is a delegated legislation. Parliament has delegated power to central government to issue a notification and demonetize the notes. So this is delegated power or delegated legislation. So if it does not satisfy the requirements of the section, which is the parent legislation, section 26(2) of the RBI Act, which is the parent legislation or the supreme legislation, if it does not fulfill the requirements, automatically the notification is illegal and the demonetization will become illegal, liable to be set aside. So this was the contention of the petitioners, that one, it does not satisfy the requirements of 26(2). And secondly, they contended that, be that as it may, let us take it for granted, assuming but not conceding, that 26(2) requirements are satisfied. 26(2) itself is unconstitutional because Parliament has done excessive delegation to the central government. It has not laid down limits on the powers of delegation, which it should have. It should have set out some guidelines on under what circumstances demonetization should be done, under what circumstances it should not have been done. Therefore, if any is to be read as all, then 26(2) would become unconstitutional due to excessive delegation of power by Parliament to the central government, to the delegate. This was the second contention. So the contention on the legality of demonetization fell into two parts. One, the section under which the notification was issued, the requirements of that section, that is section 26(2) of RBI Act 1934, were not satisfied. And second, even if those requirements are to be taken as satisfied, then the 26(2) itself is unconstitutional. Therefore, the demonetization will in any event be liable to be set aside. This was their contention. So coming to section 26(2), how the Supreme Court interpreted the requirements in the recent decision remains to be seen. The first requirement is the recommendation of central board. So recommendation of central board, the dictionary meaning of the word recommend is to advise as to a course of action or to praise or commend. It's a statement expressing commendation or a message of this nature. So that's the dictionary meaning, to advise as to a course of action. So therefore the Supreme Court held that in the context in which it is used, the word recommendation in section 26(2) would mean a consultative process between the Central Board of Reserve Bank of India and the central government. In other words, both would share with each other the details that they have in their possession, and based on those details, the Central Board of RBI would make the recommendation, and based on the recommendation and considering all information and all pros and cons, the central government would make the final decision and notify the demonetization. And the judicial scrutiny as such would be limited to find out whether both shared their respective points of view and data and information known to each other and discussed and examined the relative merits of their views. That is all that needs to be considered to see whether recommendation has been done. The majority view of the Supreme Court by 4:1 upheld the demonetization. The majority view held that recommendation only means this: a process of consultation between the central government and the Central Board of the Reserve Bank of India. It does not mean that the Reserve Bank of India has to initiate the proposal. Proposal could be initiated by either, only that both should share the relative points of view and all the data they have with each other. Both should deliberate on it, and after due application of mind, if the decision is taken, that would be fine. It will be treated that recommendation requirement of section 26(2) is fully satisfied. So there is no requirement that it should be initiated by the Reserve Bank of India. This is what the Supreme Court, the majority view, held by 4:1. Now we come to the meaning of the word any. The settled proposition is that in judicial dictionaries say the word any is a word which casts the net wide and long enough to take everything in. It will take everything in of a particular kind that is mentioned without limitation. But the limitation, if any, to the scope of the word any will be as per the circumstances, as per the context of the provision, save the restrictions that the context admits. The word any will have wide application without any restrictions. So there are judicial decisions of the Supreme Court which have elucidated on what the word any means. There was these words anyone in Mines Act, which was interpreted by Supreme Court in the Chief Inspector of Mines and Another versus Lala Karamchand Thapar, etc. And anyone in common parlance is used to refer to everyone, but not one but all. In affirmative sentences, it asserts concerning a being or thing of the sort named without limitation as to which, and thus collectively of every of them. In the recent decision, Supreme Court pointed out that the word any in the aforesaid case, in that particular case, in Mines Act case, the word was not any but anyone, but still court held that anyone would mean all but not one. And here in 26(2), there is only any, not anyone. So that ratio that it will apply without any limitation, it will any series would mean all series, is all the more applicable here. Again, in Article 105 of the Constitution, there is this free speech article. That is, whatever an MP, honorable MP says on the floor of the House when the Parliament is in session, when proceedings are going on, whatever he says on the floor of the House, whatever he does on the floor of the House, the voting or anything, that will not be challenged in any court of law. He can, no proceedings in court, in any court can be taken against him for what he says or does on the floor of the House. Whatever, freedom of expression is total. So anything said in Parliament was interpreted as everything that is said in Parliament, but only that the limitation that the context admits is that it should be in Parliament. Everything said should be in Parliament to get that immunity in Article 105. But subject to that limitation, anything means everything. So any is very wide scope, has a very wide scope, and it admits the limitations only that context imposes on it. Otherwise, the word any has got a very wide canvas and wide scope, and it casts the net far and wide and ropes in everything of the kind described. The words anyone in, then again, in argument was sought to be advanced in section 35 of the Foreign Exchange Management Act that the words any decision or order which is appealable from the tribunal which was appealable to the High Court, only appeals from final order could be filed. In that case, the Supreme Court rejected the argument, saying that any decision on order means without any limitation. Of course, many of the appellate provisions, they stipulate limitations that on what grounds appeal can be preferred, whether on question of fact, question of law, or whether any pre-deposit should be done of fine or tax or anything. This is all they say. But subject to those limitations which are gathered in the provision, When the word any decision or order is used, it means any decision of order without any limitation. Now, in a recent case, in a decision in 2022, in state of Maharashtra versus 63 Moons Technologies Limited. Of course, this decision was not cited in the demonetization case, but nevertheless, we take up this case because the word any was again interpreted. The word any used 5 times in Maharashtra Protection of Interest of Depositors Act shows clear intent of the legislator to cast far and wide the net of regulatory provisions. So, by default meaning of any is no restriction, and wide, it would mean all. If context admits some restrictions, then those restrictions will be applicable. Otherwise, it will mean all of the kind that is described. So therefore, after reviewing all various judicial decisions, the court came to the conclusion that any series word used in section 26.2, the majority held that 26.2, the word any series would mean all series. Therefore, complete demonetization of notes of a particular denomination can be undertaken under section 26.2 without resorting to the legislation routes which were taken in the 1946 and 1978. So, complete demonetization can be undertaken through a notification, and there is nothing illegal because the requirements of section 26.2 are satisfied. Any should be read as all, in one or some or all. The Supreme Court further pointed out that there are difficulties with if suppose the word any is to be given a restricted meaning as only one or some, then a very anomalous situation would arise. That suppose there are 20 series of a particular denomination of notes, say 500 or 1000, and out of that 19 can be demonetized by issuing a notification. But if you issue all 20, then it becomes illegal. And there is a possibility that the fake notes may be there in all 20 series. In such a case, it will pose problems for the central government because it can denotify 19 but not all 20. So this will lead to a very anomalous situation, the Supreme Court pointed out. Therefore, to taking the plain meaning, and given that there are no contextual limitations, and to avoid anomalous results, the word any should be read as all in its plain, unrestricted sense. This is what the court held. The Supreme Court also considered what practical difficulties or anomalies can come if an anomalous situation could arise if we give a restricted meaning to the word any instead of the unrestricted meaning. The Supreme Court took an example that suppose if there are 20 series of a particular denomination, and if argument of petitioners is to be accepted that any means one or some, then 19 series can be demonetized and that one remaining series should be left as legal tender, which would lead to a chaotic situation because it's very much possible that the fake Indian currency notes in that denomination would be there in all 20 series. So how does the central government cope up with such a situation if this kind of a absurd interpretation is given that one or some, that is you can demonetize 19 out of 20 at one go, but you will have to leave one as legal tender, one series as legal tender. This will lead to a very anomalous situation. Besides, the Supreme Court held that when legislature itself has provided, the central government would take a decision after considering the recommendation of Central Board of RBI, which has been assigned a primary role in matters regarding to monetary policy and management regulation of currency. The legislature could not have intended to give a restricted power under section 26.2 of the RBI Act. So, keeping all this in view, keeping in view the by default meaning of any and the anomalous situation that could arise if this by default meaning of any, wide meaning of any is not adopted, the Supreme Court held that any would mean all. So central government has power to demonetize all notes in a particular series by taking recourse to the notification route under section 26.2. Only thing is that it should do so after taking into account the recommendation after getting the recommendation of the Central Board of the Reserve Bank of India. Now, the petitioners did not stop at saying that the demonetization notification violated 26(2). The other part of the alternate argument was, assuming but not conceding that the notification meets the legalities of section 26(2). 26(2) itself is unconstitutional because of excessive delegation of power by the parliament. Now, this excessive, the normal parameters which are done to judge the constitutionality of delegated legislation or the excessive delegation argument is that whether the delegation is made subject to certain guidelines to be followed, and there are some guidelines which are given to exercise the power. Now, there is no hard and fast rule in all cases. It all depends upon who is the delegatee, what is the matter of thing which is delegated, and whether the guidance regarding the exercise of delegated powers is available anywhere in the Act, in other sections or in the preamble itself. These are all matters to be considered by the court in assessing whether there is excessive delegation or delegation is done properly and rightly by the parliament. So now this currency issue, this demonetization issue is a highly hyper-technical issue. And in this, ordinary MPs are not expected to be well versed with all the complications in economic and security environment. And these matters like when demonetization should be done and how it should be done are best left to the experts in the central government as well as the Reserve Bank of India. And the court held that the delegatee here is the central government who is answerable to the parliament. So one has to also look who is the delegatee. Delegatee is the central government itself at the highest levels and answerable to the parliament. Parliament can exercise its regulation on the central government by asking questions, by censuring, by not passing the bills. They can exercise control on the executive. So it's at the highest responsible level, which is central government. And secondly, the matter which is being delegated is one which is hyper-technical and on which ordinary MPs are expected to know nothing. Given these situations, and enough guidelines is available in the preamble and other sections of the RBI Act, keeping in all these things in view, the delegation in 26(2) is not to be treated as excessive. This is what the Supreme Court held. Now, there was another issue that was taken, that there is a constitutional right to property under Article 300A, and this delegation of this demonetization notification, it required that people exchange notes before 30th December, and failing which they could only extend as per the grace period given in the demonetization ordinance which was later promulgated, and failing which they could not exchange the notes and it takes away the property. The court held that the proportionality argument on limitation of constitutional right, it says that the limitation of constitutional right will be constitutionally permissible if it is for a designated for a particular purpose, proper purpose. Measures undertaken have a rational connection to that proper purpose. The measures undertaken are necessary in that no alternative measures would achieve the purpose. And there needs to be a proper relation or balancing between the proper purpose and social importance of preventing the limitations as constitutional right. So these four ingredients are there in the proportionality argument. The court held that the first test of proportionality, that it be for a proper purpose, is met because the preamble states that it is to combat fake currency notes menace, it is to combat the unaccounted money menace, black money menace, and it is necessary to prevent financing of subversive activities through fake currency and black money. So the first test of proper purpose is met. Now coming to the second test, the nexus test. Obviously, there is a nexus between the demonetization and addressing issues of fake currency, banknotes and black money, drug trafficking and terror financing. There is a rational nexus test. it is related to achieving that objective. How far the objective achieved is not a matter for courts to judge. Courts do not have the expertise to judge how far the measure is effective. This is matter to be left to experts and to the voters to judge. And this is in the political realm and in public domain. The courts will only see if there is a rational nexus between the measure which is proposed and the problem which it seeks to combat. If that rational nexus is there, then how far it is achieved, courts are not going to sit in evaluation. The third thing is alternate measures. Now the nature of the situation is such, this demonetization, it's such a hyper technical thing. The courts, for example, sit in judgment and consider whether it would be better to demonetize only the 1,000 rupee notes, no need to demonetize the 500 notes, it would have been sufficient to demonetize only the 1,000 rupee notes, or whether it would be sufficient to demonetize only the 500 rupee notes without demonetizing the 1,000 rupee notes. I mean, this is kind of a thing which courts do not have the necessary expertise to judge. So the third test of whether alternative measures would suffice or not suffice is not applicable to the present case. And the fourth test of proportionality was that the proper relation, can it be really said that there is no proper relation between curbing the menace and the measures taken? Obviously no. And in any case, the right vested in the notes were not being taken away. You are being allowed to exchange the notes within that window, and you are allowed to credit any amount of it to your bank account in a KYC compliant bank account. So the argument that the right was being taken away is also not valid, and the court also held in the result that there was no problem in the proportionality argument wise. Also there is no restriction of the rights. There is a proper balance between the abridgment of rights and the measures taken. And finally the court held that the period or the window which was given for the exchange of notes was reasonable. Then further arguments were given that the decision was taken very hastily and implemented very hastily within a day. The court held that given the nature of the steps, they had to be taken very quickly, and the delay in taking the steps and giving too much time between the decision and the implementation would have ensured leakage of information, and it could have been fatal to the achievement of the objectives. And the court held that this undue haste argument also does not apply here. So the majority 4:1 argument, the 4:1 judgment, the demonetization of 2016 was upheld by saying that 26(2) was not violated in any way, and 26(2) was constitutionally valid, and the proportionality argument of the restrictions of rights also did not apply.